He was born with a gift of laughter and a sense that the world was mad. And that was all his inheritance. His exact paternity was obscure, although the village of Gavrilac had long since cleared up the mystery surrounding it. Those simple Brittany folk were not easily deceived by a fake relationship that lacked any originality. A nobleman might announce himself as the godfather of an infant from an unknown background for no obvious reason. He then takes care of the boy's upbringing and education. Even the most unsophisticated country folk understand this situation perfectly. Therefore, the good people of Gavrilac had no illusions about the true relationship between the boy, who was named André-Louis Moreau, and Quentin de Kercadia. Quentin de Kercadia was the lord of Gavrilac. He lived in the large gray house that overlooked the clustered village from a high hill. André-Louis had learned his letters at the village school. He lived with old Rabawillet, the attorney. Rabawillet worked as the fiscal intendant and managed the affairs of Quentin de Kercadia. André-Louis was packed off to Paris at the age of 15 to attend the Lycée of Louis le Grand. He went there to study the law and had now returned to practice it alongside Rabawillet. His godfather, Quentin de Kercadia, paid for all these expenses. Kercadia seemed to be clearly providing for the young man's future by placing him under Rabawillet's guidance once again. André-Louis had made the most of his opportunities on his own side. You can see him at 24 years old, filled with enough learning to cause intellectual indigestion in an ordinary mind. He eagerly studied humanity from Thucydides to the encyclopedists and from Seneca to Rousseau. This study turned his early conscious impressions of the general insanity of his own species into an unassailable conviction. I cannot find evidence that anything in his eventful life ever caused him to change that opinion later on. In his physical appearance, he was a slight wisp of a fellow. He stood barely above middle height. He had a lean, sharp face. His nose and cheekbones were prominent. His lank, black hair reached almost down to his shoulders. His mouth was long, thin-lipped, and humorous. He was saved from being truly ugly only by the splendor of his ever-questing, luminous eyes. Those eyes were so dark they were almost black. His writings provide ample evidence of his whimsical mind and rare gift for graceful expression. Unfortunately, his writings are too scarce, but his confessions are particularly insightful. He was barely aware of his gift for public speaking. Yet, he had already become famous for it. This was in the literary chamber of Rennes. This club was one of many across the country. Intellectual young people in France met there. They discussed new philosophies. However, the fame he had acquired there was hardly enviable. His colleagues thought he was too mischievous. They found him too sarcastic. He was also too eager to mock their grand theories. These theories were about improving mankind. He protested that he merely held their theories up to the mirror of truth. He argued it was not his fault if the theories looked ridiculous when reflected there. All he managed to achieve with this behavior was to frustrate people. He would likely have been expelled from a society that had grown to distrust him, if not for his friend, Philippe de Vilmorin. Philippe was a divinity student in Rennes and one of the most popular members of the literary chamber. Philippe came to Gavrilac on a November morning. He was full of news about the political storms gathering over France. He found something in that sleepy Breton village to ignite his already fierce indignation. A peasant from Gavrilac, named Maybe, had been shot dead that morning in the woods of Meupont, across the river. He was killed by a gamekeeper working for the Marquis de la Tour d'Azyr. The unfortunate peasant had been caught red-handed taking a pheasant from a snare. The gamekeeper had acted under explicit orders from his master. De Vilmorin was furious about such an absolute and merciless act of tyranny. He decided to bring the matter before Quentin de Kercadia. Maybe was a vassal of Gavrilac. Vilmorin hoped to persuade the lord of Gavrilac. He wanted the lord to demand some compensation. This compensation was for the widow and her 3 orphans. They were left behind after the brutal deed. However, André-Louis was Philippe's dearest friend, and they were almost like brothers. Therefore, the young seminary student sought him out first. He found André-Louis eating breakfast alone in Rabawillet's long, low-ceilinged, white-paneled dining room. This was the only home André-Louis had ever known. Philippe embraced him and then loudly shared his angry denunciation of the Marquis de la Tour d'Azyr. André-Louis said,
"I have heard about it already."
His friend rebuked him.
You speak as if the thing had not surprised you. Nothing beastly can surprise me when it is done by a beast. And La Tour d'Azur is a beast, as the whole world knows. Maybe was a fool for stealing his pheasants. He should have stolen someone else's pheasants. Is that all you have to say about it? What more is there to say? I have a practical mind, I hope. I intend to say more to your godfather, M. de Circadia. I will appeal to him for justice.
André-Louis raised his eyebrows.
Against the Marquis de La Tour d'Azur? Why not? My dear naive Philippe, one dog does not eat another dog. You are being unfair to your godfather. He is a humane man. Oh, he is as humane as you could want. But this is not a question of humanity. It is a question of game laws.
M. de Vilmorin threw his long arms up toward heaven in disgust. He was a tall, slender young gentleman, and a year or two younger than André-Louis. He was dressed very modestly in black, fitting for a seminary student. He wore white bands at his wrists and throat, and his shoes had silver buckles. His neatly tied brown hair had no powder in it. He exploded.
You talk like a lawyer. Naturally, but do not waste your anger on me for that reason. Tell me what you want me to do. I want you to come with me to M. de Circadia. I want you to use your influence to help get justice. I suppose I am asking for too much. My dear Philippe, I exist only to serve you. I warn you that this is a pointless mission. But please let me finish my breakfast, and then I am at your command.
M. de Vilmorin sank into a winged armchair by the clean hearth. A large fire of pine logs burned brightly there. He waited and shared the latest news of the events in Rennes with his friend. He was young, passionate, and inspired by utopian ideals. He passionately condemned the rebellious attitude of the privileged classes. André-Louis was already well aware of the changing feelings within the noble class. He participated in their meetings as the representative of a nobleman, so he was not surprised by what he heard. M. de Vilmorin was frustrated that his friend seemed unwilling to share his outrage. He cried,
Do you not see what this means? The nobles are striking at the very foundation of the throne by disobeying the king. Do they not realize that their own survival depends on the throne? If the throne falls, the people standing closest to it will be the ones crushed. Do they not see that? Evidently they do not. They are simply governing classes. I have never heard of governing classes that care about anything other than their own profit. That is exactly our complaint. That is what we are going to change. You are going to abolish the governing classes? That is an interesting experiment. I believe that was the original plan of creation, and it might have succeeded if Cain had not ruined it.
M. de Vilmorin controlled his frustration and said,
What we are going to do is transfer the government into other hands. And you think that will actually make a difference? I know it will. I assume that since you are now in minor religious orders, you already have the confidence of the Almighty. He must have shared his intention of changing human nature with you.
M. de Vilmorin's refined, strict face grew dark. He scolded his friend.
You are being profane, André. I assure you I am completely serious. To do what you are suggesting would require nothing less than divine intervention. You must change human nature, not just political systems. Can you and our bragging friends in the literary chamber of Rennes invent a new system of government that has never been tried before? Can any learned society in France do that? Surely not. And can they point to any past system that did not end in failure? My dear Philippe, the future can only be predicted by looking at the past. Men never change. People are always greedy, always taking things, and always vile. I am speaking about humanity as a whole.
M. de Vilmorin challenged him.
Are you pretending that it is impossible to improve the lives of the people? When you say the people, you are really talking about the common populace. Will you eliminate the populace? That is the only way to improve their situation. As long as they remain the common populace, their lot in life will always be damnation.
De Vilmorin spoke with a mix of sadness and anger.
You are arguing for the side that employs you, of course. I suppose that is natural. On the contrary, I am trying to argue with complete detachment. Let us test your ideas. What kind of government do you want? I assume you want a republic based on what you have said. Well, you already have one. France is actually a republic today.
Philippe stared at him.
I think you are speaking in paradoxes. What about the king? The king? The whole world knows there has not been a real king in France since Louis XIV. There is an overweight gentleman at Versailles who wears the crown, but your own news shows how little power he truly has. The nobles and the clergy hold the high positions, and they keep the people of France harnessed beneath their feet. They are the real rulers. That is why I say France is a republic. She is a republic built on the best model, which is the Roman model. The Romans had great patrician families living in luxury. They kept all the power, wealth, and valuable things for themselves. Meanwhile, the common populace was crushed, groaning, sweating, bleeding, starving, and dying in the Roman streets. That was a republic, and it was the mightiest one we have ever seen.
Philippe struggled with his impatience.
Will you at least admit that we could not possibly be governed any worse than we are now? You have basically admitted it yourself. That is not the main issue. The real question is whether we would be governed any better if we replaced the current ruling class with a new one. I would be the last person to lift a finger for a change without some guarantee of improvement. And what guarantees can you offer? Who is the class aiming for power? I will tell you. It is the bourgeoisie. What? That surprises you, does it? The truth is often unsettling. You had not thought of that? Well, think about it now. Look closely at this Nantes manifesto. Who are the real authors of it? I can tell you exactly who forced the city of Nantes to send it to the king. It was about 10,000 workers. They were shipwrights, weavers, laborers, and artisans of all kinds.
André-Louis replied.
They were stimulated and driven to do it by their employers, the wealthy traders and shipowners of that city. I have a habit of looking at things very closely. This is why our colleagues at the literary chamber strongly dislike me during debates. They only skim the surface where I dig deep. There are people standing behind those laborers and artisans of Nantes. These people are advising and urging those poor, ignorant workers to shed their blood while chasing the illusion of freedom. These hidden instigators are the sailmakers, the spinners, the shipowners, and the slave traders. Yes, the slave traders. These men get rich by buying and selling human flesh in the colonies, yet they are leading a campaign for liberty here at home. Do you not see that the entire movement is driven by merchants, traders, and petty subjects? Their wealth has made them envious of the power that comes only from noble birth. The money changers in Paris hold the national debt bonds. They see the terrible financial state of the country, and they tremble at the thought that one single man might cancel the debt through bankruptcy. To protect themselves, they are working in the shadows to overthrow the state. They want to build a new state on the ruins where they will be the masters. They are inflaming the people to accomplish this goal. We have already seen blood run like water in Dauphiny, and it is always the blood of the common populace. We may soon see the same thing happen here in Brittany. And what happens if the new ideas win in the end? What happens if the noble rule is overthrown? You will simply exchange an aristocracy for a plutocracy. Is that really worth the effort? Do you think the people will be treated any better by money changers and slave traders? Will men who grew rich through the ugly arts of buying and selling be kinder than the priests and nobles? Philippe, has it ever crossed your mind why the rule of the nobles is so unbearable? It is their greed. Greed is the curse of all mankind. Should you expect less greed from men who built their entire lives upon it? Oh, I readily admit that the current government is terrible, unjust, and tyrannical. Call it whatever you want, but I beg you to look to the future. You must see that the government meant to replace it could be infinitely worse.
Philippe sat in thought for a moment. Then he returned to his argument.
You are ignoring the abuses. You are not talking about the horrible, unbearable abuses of power that we suffer under right now. There will always be an abuse of power wherever power exists. Not if holding that power depends on administering it fairly. The very act of holding power is power itself. We cannot dictate terms to the people who hold it. The people can dictate terms. The people can do it with their combined strength. I ask you again, do you mean the common populace when you say the people? You do. What power can the common populace possibly wield? They can run wild. They can burn and kill for a short time, but they cannot hold enduring power. Power requires qualities that the common populace simply does not possess, or else they would not be the populace in the first place. The unavoidable and tragic result of civilization is the creation of a populace. As for the rest, abuses can only be fixed by fairness. And if fairness cannot be found among the educated classes, it will not be found anywhere. M. Necker is preparing to correct abuses and limit privileges. That has already been decided. The States General will gather for that exact purpose.
Philippe cried out.
And heaven knows we have made a very promising start here in Brittany. Pooh, that is nothing. The nobles will naturally not surrender without a fight. It is a useless and ridiculous struggle, but I suppose it is human nature to be useless and ridiculous.
M. de Vilmorin became bitterly sarcastic.
You will probably call the shooting of maybe useless and ridiculous as well. I would fully expect to hear you defend the Marquis de la Tour d'Azyr. You would probably argue that his gamekeeper was being merciful when he shot Maybe. The alternative for Maybe would have been a life sentence working in the galleys.
André-Louis finished his chocolate, set down his cup, and pushed back his chair. His breakfast was over.
I confess I do not have your boundless charity, my dear Philippe. I am saddened by Maybe's fate. However, once I get past the initial emotional shock of the news, I cannot forget that Maybe was committing theft when he met his death.
M. de Vilmorin stood up in a surge of anger.
That is exactly the point of view I would expect from the assistant fiscal intendant of a nobleman, the delegate of a nobleman to the States of Brittany.
André-Louis cried out in genuine concern.
Philippe, is that fair? You are angry with me.
Vilmorin admitted.
I am hurt. I am deeply hurt by your attitude, and I am not the only one who resents your conservative tendencies. Do you know that the literary chamber is seriously considering expelling you?
André-Louis shrugged.
That neither surprises nor bothers me.
M. de Vilmorin continued passionately.
Sometimes I think you have no heart at all. With you, it is always about the letter of the law and never about fairness. I am beginning to realize I made a mistake in coming to you, André. You are not likely to be any help to me during my meeting with M. de Circadia.
He picked up his hat, clearly intending to leave. André-Louis sprang up from his chair and grabbed him by the arm. He said,
I swear this is the last time I will ever agree to discuss law or politics with you, Philippe. I care for you too much to fight over other men's business.
Philippe insisted strongly.
But I have made their business my own. Of course you have, and I love you for doing it. It is right for you to feel that way. You are going to be a priest, and everyone's business is a priest's business. On the other hand, I am a lawyer. As you said, I am the fiscal intendant of a nobleman. A lawyer's business is strictly the business of his client. That is the difference between us. Even so, you are not going to push me away. I will tell you honestly, now that I think about it, I would rather you not see M. de Circadia with me. Your loyalty to your client cannot possibly help my cause.
His anger had faded, but his determination remained strong, rooted in the reason he had just given. André-Louis said,
Very well. We will do as you please. But nothing will stop me from at least walking with you as far as the chateau. I will wait for you outside while you make your appeal to M. de Circadia.
And so they left the house as good friends. The natural sweetness of M. de Vilmorin's character did not hold any resentment. Together, they walked up the steep main street of Gavrillac. Chapter 2. The Aristocrat. The sleepy village of Gavrillac sat a half-league away from the main road to Rennes. This kept it safely hidden from the traffic of the outside world. The village lay in a curve of the river Mayo. It started at the foot of a shallow hill and straggled halfway up the slope. A squat manor house sat at the top. The village paid tribute to its lord in money and service. It paid tithes to the church and taxes to the king. By the time it finished paying, the village struggled to keep body and soul together with what was left. Still, conditions in Gavrillac were not as bad as in many other parts of France. They were certainly not half as bad as the lives of the wretched peasants working for the great lord of La Tour d'Azur. His massive estates were separated from this little village by the waters of the Mayo. The Château de Gavrillac looked like a lord's manor mostly because it sat high above the village. It had no special features of its own. It was built of granite like the rest of Gavrillac. It had stood for 3 centuries, which softened its harsh look. It was a squat, flat-fronted building with 2 stories. Each floor had 4 windows covered by external wooden shutters. 2 square towers with cone-shaped roofs stood at either end. The house sat far back in a garden. The garden was bare now, but it was very pleasant in the summer. A fine sweep of balustrade terrace stretched across the front. It looked exactly like what it was. It had always been the home of unpretentious people who cared more about farming than adventure. Quentin de Kercadia was the Lord of Gavrillac. The vague title of Seigneur de Gavrillac was the only title he held. His forefathers had held it before him, and no one knew where it came from. He fit the impression his house gave perfectly. He was as rough as the granite itself. He had never visited the royal courts, and he had never served in the king's armies. He left it to his younger brother, Etienne, to represent the family in high society. His own interests had always been his woods and pastures. He hunted and farmed his land. On the surface, he looked like a simple peasant farmer. He kept no grand estate, at least not one that matched his position or the tastes of his niece, Aline de Kercadia. Aline had spent 2 years in the royal court at Versailles with her uncle Etienne. She had very different ideas from her uncle Quentin about how a lord should live. She was the only child of a 3rd Kercadia brother and was orphaned at 4 years old. She had ruled over the lord of Gavrillac like a tyrant ever since, as he was both father and mother to her. But she had never managed to break down his stubbornness about living grandly. She was walking on the terrace when André-Louis and M. de Vilmorin arrived. The chill air made her wrap her slight body in a white cloak. Her head was covered in a close-fitting bonnet edged with white fur. A knot of pale blue ribbon tied it tight under her chin on the right side. A long ringlet of blonde hair escaped on the left. The cold air made her cheeks pink and seemed to make her dark blue eyes sparkle. She had known André-Louis and M. de Vilmorin since childhood. The 3 of them used to play together. André-Louis was her uncle's godson, so she called him cousin. She kept calling him cousin long after Philippe de Vilmorin outgrew their childhood friendship. Philippe had become Monsieur de Vilmorin to her now. She waved to them as they walked up. She stood at the end of the terrace waiting for them, looking like a beautiful painting and knowing it.
If you came to see my uncle, you picked a bad time, gentlemen,
She said. She seemed a little restless.
He is very busy. We will wait, mademoiselle.
M. de Vilmorin said. He bowed politely over her hand.
Who would rush to see the uncle when they can spend a moment with the niece? Monsieur the Abbé.
She teased him.
When you become a priest, I will make you my confessor. You are so understanding. But he has no curiosity.
André-Louis said.
You haven't thought of that. I wonder what you mean, Cousin André. You well might wonder.
Philippe laughed.
No one ever knows what he means.
Philippe looked across the terrace and saw a carriage parked in front of the chateau. It was the kind of carriage you saw in a big city, but rarely in the country. It was a beautiful 2-horse cabriolet made of walnut. The varnish looked like glass, and tiny country scenes were painted perfectly on the doors. It held 2 people. It had a box in front for the driver and a stand in back for the footman. The stand was empty, but the footman was pacing in front of the door. He walked out from behind the carriage, and M. de Vilmorin saw his bright blue and gold uniform. It was the uniform of the Marquis de La Tour d'Azur.
Why is M. de La Tour d'Azur with your uncle?
He asked.
He is, monsieur.
she said. Her voice and eyes were full of mystery, but M. de Vilmorin did not notice.
Pardon me.
He said. He bowed low with his hat in his hand.
Your servant, mademoiselle.
He turned to walk toward the house.
Shall I come with you, Philippe?
André-Louis called out.
It would be rude to assume you would want to.
M. de Vilmorin said, glancing at Mademoiselle.
And I don't think it would help. If you will wait.
M. de Vilmorin walked away. Mademoiselle paused for a moment and then laughed lightly.
Where is he going in such a hurry? To see M. de la Tour d'Azur as well as your uncle, I guess. But he cannot. They cannot see him. Did I not say they are very busy? You don't ask me why, André.
She looked mysterious again. It could have been excitement or amusement, or maybe both. André-Louis could not tell.
You clearly want to tell me, so why should I ask?
He said.
If you are going to be sarcastic, I will not tell you even if you ask. Oh yes, I will. It will teach you to treat me with proper respect. I hope I will always treat you with respect. You will have to when you learn that M. de la Tour d'Azur is here because of me. I am the reason for his visit.
She looked at him with sparkling eyes and a big smile.
The rest seems obvious. But please treat me like an idiot, because it is not obvious to me. Why, stupid, he came to ask for my hand in marriage. Good God.
André-Louis said. He stared at her in shock. She stepped back from him. She frowned and tilted her chin up.
Does it surprise you? It disgusts me.
He said bluntly.
In fact, I don't believe it. You are playing a joke on me.
She put aside her annoyance for a moment to prove him wrong.
I am completely serious, monsieur. My uncle received a formal letter from M. de la Tour d'Azur this morning. It announced his visit and the reason for it. It did surprise us a little. Oh, I see.
André-Louis said, looking relieved.
I understand. For a moment I almost feared.
He stopped, looked at her, and shrugged.
Why did you stop? You almost feared that my time in Versailles was wasted. You thought I would let someone court me like a village peasant. You were being stupid. I am being courted properly, through my uncle. Does only his consent matter according to Versailles? What else matters? Your own consent.
She laughed.
I am an obedient niece, when it suits me. Will it suit you to be obedient if your uncle accepts this monstrous proposal? Monstrous.
She looked offended.
Why is it monstrous, please? For a score of reasons.
He answered irritably.
Give me one.
She challenged.
He is twice your age. Hardly.
She said.
He is at least 45. But he looks 30. He is very handsome. You have to admit that. You cannot deny that he is very rich and powerful. He is the greatest nobleman in Brittany. He will make me a great lady. God made you a great lady, Aline. Well, that is better. Sometimes you can almost be polite.
She started walking along the terrace again, and André-Louis walked beside her.
I can be more than polite. I can give you reasons why you should not let this beast ruin the beautiful thing God created.
She frowned, and her lips tightened.
You are speaking of my future husband.
She scolded. His lips tightened too, and his pale face grew paler.
Is it true then? Is it settled? Your uncle is going to agree? You are going to be sold into slavery to a man you don't even know, with no love at all? I dreamed of better things for you, Aline. Better than being the Marquise de la Tour d'Azur?
He made a frustrated gesture.
Are men and women just names? Do their souls mean nothing? Is there no joy or happiness in life? Are wealth and pleasure and empty titles the only things that matter? I thought so highly of you, Aline. I thought you were almost divine. You have a joyful heart and a smart mind. I thought you could see past the fake things and find real meaning. Yet you will give it all up for a fairy tale. You will sell your soul and your body to be the Marquise de la Tour d'Azur. You are being rude,
she said. She frowned, but her eyes were laughing.
and you jump to conclusions too fast. My uncle will only agree to let him try to win my consent. My uncle and I understand each other. I am not going to be traded like a vegetable.
He stopped and faced her. His eyes were burning, and his pale cheeks turned red.
You have been torturing me just to amuse yourself.
He cried.
Well, I forgive you because I am so relieved. You are going too fast again, Cousin André. I let my uncle agree that the Marquis can court me. I like how he looks. I am flattered that he chose me, especially since he is so important. I might want to share his importance. The Marquis does not look boring. It should be interesting to have him court me. It might be even more interesting to marry him. When I think about it, I probably will decide to marry him.
He looked at her. He looked at her sweet, beautiful, childlike face framed in white fur. All the life seemed to drain from his face.
God help you, Aline.
He groaned. She stamped her foot. She thought he was being very annoying and a bit arrogant.
You are insolent, monsieur. It is never insolent to pray. Aline, I was only praying. I will keep praying. You will need my prayers, I think. You are insufferable.
She was getting angry now. He could see her frown deepen and her face get red.
That is because I am suffering. Oh, Aline, my little cousin, think carefully about what you are doing. Think about the real things you are trading for these fake titles. You will never know those real things because the fake ones will block your way. When M. de la Tour d'Azur comes to court you, study him well. Use your good instincts. Let your noble nature judge this animal. I consider that you are taking advantage of my kindness,
She said.
You are abusing my tolerance. Who are you? What are you that you have the nerve to speak to me like this?
He bowed. He went back to being cold and detached, and he put back on his mocking attitude.
My congratulations, mademoiselle. You are adapting quickly to the great role you are going to play. You need to adapt too, monsieur.
She snapped, turning her shoulder to him.
I will adapt to being the dirt under the proud feet of Madame la Marquise. I hope I will know my place in the future.
His words stopped her. She turned back to him, and he saw that her eyes were watery. Instantly, his mocking tone changed to regret.
Lord, I am a beast, Aline.
He cried, stepping toward her.
Forgive me if you can.
She was almost ready to ask him for forgiveness, but his apology meant she did not have to.
I will try,
She said.
but only if you promise not to do it again. But I will.
He said.
That is just how I am. I will fight to save you, even from yourself if I have to. It doesn't matter if you forgive me or not.
They stood there looking at each other. They were both breathing a little hard and looking a bit defiant. Then the others came out of the porch. The Marquis of La Tour d'Azur came first. He was the Count of Souls, a knight of the Orders of the Holy Ghost and St. Louis, and a brigadier in the king's armies. He was a tall, graceful man. He stood straight like a soldier and held his head high and proud. He wore magnificent clothes. His mulberry velvet coat had wide skirts and gold lace. His velvet waistcoat was a golden apricot color. He wore black silk breeches and stockings. His red-heeled shoes were shiny and had diamond buckles. His powdered hair was tied back with a wide ribbon made of watered silk. He carried a small three-cornered hat under his arm. A thin, gold-hilted dress sword hung at his side. André-Louis watched him carefully. He noticed how magnificent he looked and how smoothly he moved. The Marquis had a grand way about him that mixed pride with politeness in a strange way. André-Louis trembled for Aline. This man was an expert at winning women over. His romantic successes were famous. He drove mothers with marriageable daughters crazy, and he ruined the lives of husbands with pretty wives. M. de Circadia followed right behind him. He was the exact opposite of the Marquis. The Lord of Gavrelac had very short legs. His body was starting to get fat at age 45. He had an enormous head, but he was not very smart. His face was pink and covered in spots from the smallpox that almost killed him when he was young. His clothes were so careless they were almost messy. He had never married, ignoring the first duty of a gentleman to produce an heir. Because of his looks and his bachelor life, the people in the countryside called him a woman-hater. M. de Vilmorin came next. He was very pale and quiet. His lips were tight, and he looked worried. A very elegant young gentleman stepped out of the carriage to meet them. It was the Chevalier de Chabrelaine, the cousin of M. de la Tour d'Azyr. He had been waiting for the Marquis to return. He had watched André-Louis and Mademoiselle talking with great interest, without them knowing he was there. M. de la Tour d'Azyr saw Aline. He left the other men and walked straight across the terrace to her with long steps. He nodded to André-Louis with a mix of politeness and superiority. The young lawyer had a strange place in society. Because of his birth, he was not considered a noble, but he was not a commoner either. He was somewhere in between. Neither class claimed him, but both classes treated him familiarly. André-Louis coldly returned the greeting and walked away to join his friend. The Marquis took Mademoiselle's hand. He bowed over it and kissed it.
Mademoiselle,
He said. He looked deep into her blue eyes, which smiled back calmly.
your uncle has done me the honor of allowing me to pay my respects to you. Will you do me the honor of receiving me tomorrow? I have something very important to tell you. Something important, Le Marquis? You almost frightened me.
But her calm little face in its fur hood showed no fear. She had learned how to act at Versailles for a reason.
That is certainly not my goal.
He said.
But is it important to you, monsieur, or to me? To both of us, I hope.
He answered. His fine, passionate eyes were full of meaning.
You make me curious, monsieur, and, of course, I am an obedient niece. I will be honored to receive you. Not honored, mademoiselle. You will give the honor. Tomorrow at this time, I will have the joy of visiting you.
He bowed again and kissed her fingers once more. She curtsied. With that polite and formal greeting finished, they parted. She was breathing a little fast now. She was a little blinded by the man's beauty, his princely manner, and the power he seemed to show. Without thinking, she compared him to André-Louis. André-Louis was thin and rude, wearing a plain brown coat and steel-buckled shoes. She felt guilty for letting André-Louis say those presumptuous things. Tomorrow, the Marquis would offer her a great position and a high rank. She felt she had already lessened the dignity he was going to give her just by listening to the insult. She would not allow it again. She would not be so weak and childish as to let André-Louis make fun of a man who made him look like a servant. Her vanity and ambition argued with her better self. To her great annoyance, her better self was not entirely convinced. Meanwhile, M. de la Tour d'Azyr climbed into his carriage. He said goodbye to M. de Circadia. He also said a word to M. de Vilmorin, and M. de Vilmorin just bowed silently in agreement. The carriage drove away. The powdered footman in blue and gold stood stiffly on the back. M. de la Tour d'Azyr bowed to Mademoiselle, and she waved back. Then M. de Vilmorin put his arm through André-Louis's arm.
Come on, André,
He said.
but you will stay for dinner, both of you.
The hospitable lord of Gavrelac cried.
We will drink a special toast.
He winked and looked toward Mademoiselle as she walked up. He was a simple, good-hearted man. M. de Vilmorin apologized. He said he had an appointment that stopped him from staying. He was very stiff and formal.
And you, André? Me? Oh, I share the appointment, godfather.
He lied.
And I am superstitious about toasts.
He did not want to stay. He was angry at Aline for smiling at M. de la Tour d'Azyr. He was angry at the dirty deal he saw her ready to make. He was suffering because he had lost an illusion.